Prince Harry is straight up not having a good time on his visit to the UK. That is, if you look only at headlines coming out of the British media about this trip. First of all, Daily Beast, the reason you're saying the trip ended in disaster came at the beginning of the trip. So really, it began with disaster. The disaster in question was not the conflicting reports and briefings over Harry being denied a room at Buckingham Palace, but rather his lawsuit against the Daily Mail. He was one of 7 claimants, let's not forget. He is only the highest profile name on this list. Remind me again how Harry and Meghan are irrelevant when all of the coverage is using his name to get you to care about this story. You might remember that earlier this year, Prince Harry, along with claimants like Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, and Baroness Doreen Lawrence, took Associated Newspapers, who published the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday, to court. Now, for Harry, this was the 3rd case in his string of battles against British media outlets, all of which in some way revolved around unlawful information gathering. It was always known that this was going to be the biggest uphill battle just because of the breadth of claims being brought against ANL. The claims for Harry centered around stories published between 2001 and 2013. Harry had previously either gotten a victory or an apology after a settlement in his 2 cases against Mirror Group newspapers and News Group newspapers. But on Monday, the judge in this case, who happened to be a solicitor working for News Group newspapers and Mirror Group newspapers in those earlier cases, handed down a judgment dismissing all of these claims. Did you hear me say that the judge previously represented the publishers that Harry went against in court 2 other times? Yeah, we'll come back to that. Basically, the judgment from Justice Matthew Nicklin rejected the idea that the claimants in this case could infer that a story was obtained illegally if there were legitimate and realistic legal ways in which those stories could have been obtained. Even though, and I find this so laughable as an American, still not a legal expert, even though Associated Newspapers could not positively explain how some stories were sourced. The judge says that still doesn't mean that the article must have been unlawfully sourced. From what I understand about these legal cases in Britain, especially when they center around libel and untrue claims, the burden of proof is flipped from what we would expect here in the US. Meaning that it falls on either the defendant or the claimant in this case, because this was a civil lawsuit, to prove that the information published was either obtained unlawfully or was false. The defendant, or in this case, the publisher, does not bear any of that burden of proof. And it is not enough for the claimant to demonstrate that they would have been done harm by the publisher publishing the thing that they did. Okay, let me get out of the legal weeds here because remember, again, not a legal expert. It's that kind of thing that makes it so tricky when you hear Harry say in his statement after the verdict that this is a complete and obvious whitewash to wholeheartedly, I'm not going to say get on his side, but this is an extremely complex case. And what the publishers and their attorneys were able to do was demonstrate that there were just other ways this information could have gotten to them, particularly with Harry as it related to his relationship with then-girlfriend Chelsea Davy. And apparently that was enough for the judge in this case. But I would also stop short of calling it, as ANL, remember the publishers of the Daily Mail, did, calling this an overwhelming victory and a magnificent vindication. I would not go that far. I don't think you should ever feel vindicated for using underhanded methods to obtain a story, whether that is unlawful phone hacking, going to the police to get information, or taking leaks from palace aides, which still remains on the table. Even if that's not illegal, I think we can all agree it's shady. So not a moral vindication at all of these journalists and their alleged practices, but a legal one. Sure, I guess the possibility that the reporting came from legitimate sources, even if those sources were still a bit underhanded, that is what resulted in this verdict. But let's talk about how this played into Harry's time in the UK, which you'll remember started off with a bunch of very confusing reports. Confusing and conflicting. Watch my last video if you want to see the BBC throw up their hands and be like, yeah, guys, we don't know. We don't know how to make sense of this story. Because when it came out that the offer from Buckingham Palace for Harry to stay at a palace, a royal residence, for just one night was rescinded, there were 2 conflicting reasons. The one was that Harry had missed some deadline. Listen, if my son If my friend, if my acquaintance called me last minute and said, hey, I'm really in a bind, I need somewhere to stay that is safe, I'm walking down the hall and I'm making up the couch. It's not that difficult. Which is why I think we can infer the real reason that Harry's accommodation was pulled off the table was the Associated newspaper verdict. Now, Harry's team did say the palace would have been aware of this verdict ahead of time, that the result was coming on Tuesday, so they were still confused why the offer had been pulled. What I don't think the palace would have known was how scorched earth Harry wanted to go if his claims were denied. And I have now heard that the real reason Harry was not able to stay at Buckingham Palace was because King Charles was not only concerned about what his reaction would be to the newspaper lawsuit verdict, but that any statement he made would then be seen as coming from within the palace, coming from an official residence, giving Harry's rightful indignation at this turn of events some sort of legitimacy, the palace stamp of approval. Even though I think it's well documented that Charles disapproves of and has tried to dissuade Harry's efforts to take these publishers to court to get justice.
You didn't think I was going to stay quiet about Prince Harry's court loss, did you? So here's my 2 cents. Prince Harry lost his case against Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Fail. You know what? It is what it is. You don't win every lawsuit. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. That's how the legal system works. What people are forgetting is this case wasn't just about Harry alone. This case also included Sir Elton John, David Furnish, Elizabeth Hurley, Baroness Doreen Lawrence, Sadie Frost, and Sir Simon Hughes. These are people with completely different backgrounds who believed they had legitimate concerns about how their private information was obtained. The judge ruled that the claimants didn't present enough evidence to prove Associated Newspapers obtained the information unlawfully. Am I surprised? No. Maybe this is the American in me, but I expected the law to protect people from unlawful invasion of privacy. Britain seems to bend over backwards to protect the tabloid industry. If you've ever wondered why the British tabloids have become a global embarrassment, look no further than the legal system that has allowed them to flourish. This case wasn't about whether the reporting was ugly, invasive, or morally bankrupt. It was about whether the claimants could prove that the information was obtained through unlawful means. Here's the bigger picture. This loss doesn't erase Prince Harry's previous wins. It doesn't erase the settlements. It doesn't erase the apologies. It doesn't erase the fact that he has already exposed unlawful practices in the British press. And while the tabloids are busy celebrating his loss, Harry was still doing the work. He showed up for the Invictus Games Foundation. He visited Birmingham's Children's Hospital in support of Well Child, a charity he's been patron since 2007. He met seriously ill children, their families, and the nurses who care for them every day. He thanked those nurses for changing their lives. Then came one of my favorite moments. While talking with one of the young patients, Harry mentioned that Prince Archie is obsessed with Lego and even calls him a master builder. That's such a normal dad moment. In the middle of legal drama, all the headlines, all the noise, you got a glimpse of Harry simply being a proud father. He also continued his annual tradition of writing to bereaved military children through Scotty's Little Soldiers, reminding them that grief doesn't define them and that they are never alone. That's the part his critics can never seem to process. Harry can lose court cases and still show up. He can take the L and keep working. He can be dragged by the tabloids and still use his platform for veterans, sick children, military families, and people who actually need support. A legal loss is one chapter. It's not the whole book. Harry may have lost in court, but while the tabloids were celebrating a legal victory, Harry was visiting sick children, supporting Well Child, talking proudly about his son, standing with military families, and continuing the work he has done for years. That's the difference. One side makes headlines. The other side makes a difference. What carries more weight with you? A courtroom loss or years of showing up and doing the work? And that's the read. If you like your tea hot, share it, save your seat, and follow for more. This is the Notorious JTB, Notoriously Opinionated, signing out.
Happy Friday, Scotties. Welcome back to Sussex Pulse Hub. I hope you are all enjoying your weekend. Thank you all for tuning in. You honestly cannot make this stuff up. The UK tabloids are out here doing Olympic-level mental gymnastics, and they look absolutely ridiculous. Check the timeline. The ink wasn't even dry on that court announcement, which dropped right when Harry landed, mind you. and the press instantly prints these massive headlines screaming, "Harry's trip ends in complete disaster." Hold on, ends? The man just unpacked his bags. How is the trip already over? Are these editors time traveling now? They literally saw a legal update, turned off their brains, and sprinted to the printing press because they couldn't wait to celebrate. And let's talk about the sheer obsession. Harry wasn't the only guy on that lawsuit. There was a whole crowd of other claimants involved. But if you look at the front pages, you'd think it was a solo mission, because nobody is buying a paper to read about random claimant number 4. They need Harry. He is their entire business model. While regular people are out here dealing with real-world stress, paying bills, and just trying to survive the week, these massive media empires are throwing a petty temper tantrum over a royal's calendar. It's pathetic. But honestly, Harry is out here moving forward and living his life, while the entire UK media is collectively losing its mind over him rent-free. Look, let's call it what it is. This isn't journalism, it's a straight-up personal vendetta. The British tabloids aren't trying to drop facts, they are just throwing a party because they think they finally scored a point against the one guy who actually had the guts to call out their nonsense. They're acting like they won the league, completely forgetting that Harry already dragged them before and walked away with a massive apology. You lose one round in court and suddenly people think it's game over? Come on, that's not how life works. But let's keep it real about this specific verdict. It smells incredibly fishy. You cannot tell me the palace didn't have their fingers all over this one. It's giving major brown envelopes under the cable energy, like the judge was playing for the other team before the trial even started. For regular people watching this play out, it's just a reminder of how the game is rigged. While the rest of us are out here dealing with parking tickets and real-world stress, these elite institutions are passing envelopes to keep the status quo intact. But the press can celebrate their little fixed win all they want. Harry already proved he can make them bleed, and one shady setback isn't going to stop the man from living his life while they stay completely obsessed. Let's talk about the absolute brass neck on Prince Harry. It takes serious guts to stand up, point at the entire British press machine and say, "Yeah, I'm dragging all of you." And what do the tabloids do? The Daily Mail and the rest of the gossip fleet are out here popping champagne and throwing a victory parade. It is pure hypocrisy. Think about it. How on earth is invading someone's privacy, hacking phones, and stalking people suddenly something to celebrate? Since when did being a creepy peeping Tom become a proud victory? But wait, it gets even more hilarious. Let's look at the referee in this match. You cannot make this up. The judge who just threw out Harry's case, turns out, back in the day, he was literally a solicitor working for the Mirror Group. Yes, that Mirror Group, the exact same company Harry was fighting. So the guy who used to cash paychecks from the defense team is now the neutral judge calling the shots and tossing Harry's lawsuit? Come on, that's not a fair trial. That's a local Sunday league match where the referee is wearing the other team's jersey under his black kit. For regular folks, this is the ultimate proof that the game is completely rigged. If a literal prince with unlimited money and the best lawyers can get played by a conflict of interest this glaring, what chance does the average guy on the street have? It's a joke. But the jokes are on them, because Harry still exposed their dirty laundry to the world. They can celebrate their shady little win all they want, but everyone sees the strings being pulled behind the curtain.
Let's be completely honest for a second. Journalism in Britain is officially dead. Harry called this whole thing a whitewash, and he was spot on. Something is seriously not adding up here. You've got the Daily Mail out here taking a fake victory lap, shouting about vindication. Excuse me? Vindication for what? You lot literally got caught sourcing information unlawfully, breaking the law to spy on people, and now you're acting like you're the heroes. It is shameful, nasty work. And then we've got the absolute comedy show happening over at Buckingham Palace. Let's talk about Harry's stay being cancelled. King Charles offered him a place to sleep and then suddenly pulled the plug because of the Associated Newspaper's verdict. Why was the palace so confused and shaking in their boots? I'll tell you why. They were terrified that if Harry won, any victory speech he made while staying under their roof would look like it was backed by the crown. Charles was so panicked about the optics that he essentially locked his own son out. It just proves what we've all known for years. Charles has his people embedded in the media, period. They are all scratching each other's backs. For the regular person on the street, this whole situation is just wild to watch. It shows you that the elites will literally lock out their own family members just to keep their media buddies happy. It's a total circus. But shout out to Harry for keeping his chin up while the palace and the tabloids run their little coordinated circus act. They can try to spin it however they want, but the public sees right through the smoke and mirrors. Squaddies, let's be honest. Losing one rigged court case does not mean you failed at life, and the tabloids need to stop acting like it. You cannot just erase years of massive global success because a shady judge did a favor for his old mates. At the end of the day, Harry is always going to be the great prince. The law is supposed to be a shield for regular people, but in Britain, the law is acting like a personal security guard for the tabloids. It is absolutely shameful to watch. While the British press was busy frothing at the mouth, tripping over themselves to celebrate his loss, what was Harry actually doing? He was out here putting in real work. He was showing up for frontline nurses, pushing forward with the Invictus Games, and honouring the kids at Scotty's Whole Soldiers. He didn't pack up and cry. He kept his head high, crushed the rest of his trip, and focused on things that actually matter. He just keeps showing up. For regular people, this is the ultimate life lesson. It shows you that the system might try to count you out, and haters will definitely throw a party when you trip, but your real work speaks for itself. The tabloids can keep screaming into the void while their print numbers hit the floor. Harry is out here making a real impact in the real world, completely unbothered, while they stay trapped in their own miserable bubble. Let them stay mad. Honestly, Princess Diana would be absolutely beaming with pride looking at Harry right now. The man is pure resilience, a total carbon copy of his mum when it comes to blocking out the noise and just getting on with the job. Think about it. Diana knew exactly what it was like to have the entire media machine trying to break her spirit, but she still showed up for the world anyway, and Harry is out here doing the exact same thing. He didn't let a single rigged headline derail the real reason he came to the UK. Instead of hiding, he's out there shaking hands, supporting the causes that actually matter, and doing the real heavy lifting while the tabloids are stuck in the corner giving major obsessed X energy. For regular people, this is just a masterclass in staying focused. It proves that you can throw all the diet you want, but you cannot stop someone who is walking in their truth. The press can keep throwing their petty little tantrums, but Harry is out here living out Diana's legacy, completely unbothered, and it is a beautiful thing to see. While King Charles and Prince William are busy playing 4D chess with their PR teams, trying to curate every single move for the cameras, Harry is out here actually keeping his feet on the ground. It is night and day. The palace is so obsessed with looking perfect and protecting their little media alliances that they forget what real human connection even looks like. They're stuck in their golden cages, letting the tabloids run their lives. Meanwhile, Harry is just down to earth, period. He's out there in the real world, hugging veterans, laughing with kids, and looking people in the eye without a hidden agenda. He doesn't need a perfectly timed press release to prove he cares. For regular people watching this unfold, it's completely obvious who is genuine and who is just managing a brand. You can keep your stuffy royal protocols and your slick media manipulation. Harry is choosing real impact over royal optics every single day, and that's why the people on the street actually respect him. Thanks for watching, Squaddies. I'm your host, Miles. Stay amazing, stay informed, and I'll catch you in the next one.